Hello and welcome to EWTN Pro-Life Weekly, your weekly dose of the top pro-life news and issues, all from a Catholic perspective. I'm Catherine Hadro in our Washington, D.C. studio. Thanks for joining us. In this week's show, a children's book calls the former Planned Parenthood president a matron saint of mothers and daughters. We discuss renewed calls for transparency and insurance plans funding abortion. And this.
You'd let it die. Seems like it'd be more humane to just take a pair of scissors.
Objection!
We have an exclusive clip of the upcoming movie about abortionist Kermit Gosnell, as we're joined in studio by one of the film's producers. But first, we go to our one-on-one interview with Senator Lindsey Graham. We spoke with the Republican senator this Tuesday about his pivotal role on the Senate Judiciary Committee. Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, thank you for your time today.
Thank you for having me.
Senator, at the Judiciary Committee hearings last week, you gave an impassioned defense of Judge Brett Kavanaugh. Why so passionate?
Well, because I thought the process was outrageous, it was despicable, and other than that, I voted for Sotomayor and Kagan, not because I agreed with them, but I thought they were qualified. Strom Thurmond voted for Ginsburg. He couldn't have possibly agreed with her legal philosophy. And Senator Hollings, my predecessor, voted for Scalia. He was a Democrat. He couldn't have possibly agreed with Scalia, but it used to be that way. The elections have consequences. What I saw was an effort to destroy a good man. I've known Brett for 20 years. Prove to me you're innocent is a bizarre standard for America. Humiliate him to the point he wants to get out. Betray Dr. Ford's trust. She said she wanted to remain anonymous. Somebody over there betrayed her trust because they wanted the politics of Dr. Ford. Couldn't believe she wasn't told that we were willing to go to California. The sum total of it, but what broke the dam was when he was being asked by a Democratic senator, Judge Kavanaugh, turned to dime again the White House counsel and asked him to continue the FBI investigation if you're truly innocent. In other words, telling this guy, if you're really innocent, you'll want this debacle to go forward, more time to destroy you and your family. That was a star chamber quality, and that's when I spoke up.
Some of your Democratic colleagues have seemed to dismiss Kavanaugh soon as his name was announced to the Supreme Court. Some have argued that objection to Kavanaugh is not rooted in the sexual assault allegations, but stems from the abortion issue, making his nomination a referendum on Roe. What do you make of that, Senator?
I think that's true. I think that's well, every time, it only happens to our nominees. Again, their nominees, Sotomayor and Kagan, I'm sure they would. I know where they're coming out on the Roe v. Wade analysis, at least I think I do. And Kavanaugh has been a judge for 12 years, 306 decisions. He's not going to decide a case in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee. He's going to go through a process. And the Roe v. Wade legal analysis, that you take a penumbra of rights, written rights that say nothing about abortion, and out of those penumbra of rights, you create a right to privacy, where 5 members of the court, 7, whatever the number was, tell elected officials you have no say in this matter. It's about the role of a judge, the role of the court. And the thing about Roe v. Wade, the analysis, what are the outer bounds of it? Is abortion today? Could it be some other concept where 5 members of the court, because they've created a judicial created right of privacy, could shut out elected bodies? That's really what it's always been about to me.
The midterms are now about a month away. What impact do you expect this will have then? How do you think Americans will respond at the polls?
I think Democrats have done something Republicans couldn't do, unite us. I've been around for 20-something years. Who should define when life begins? I've always believed that should be elected officials. So the whole issue around Roe v. Wade, who should make these decisions, an unelected court or elected people, that's part of this. But the real thing that I've seen is a uniting of the Trump Republicans, the Tea Party Republicans, the Country Club Bush Republicans, libertarians around the concept of fairness. I've never seen a galvanization, particularly among Republican women, that Dr. Ford I thought was respectfully treated, and I think something did happen, but the allegations would not even get out of the batter's box in a legal system. So they've energized the Republican Party. I think it's going to help us enormously in the midterms.
And hold on to the majority.
I think we will not only hold on to the Senate, I think we'll pick up a couple of seats. There's some red state Democrats that are representing Trump states, where President Trump won by double digits. He promised what kind of judge he would appoint. He actually gave a list of the judges, and Kavanaugh was on that list. People in these states support Trump. I think a senator from these states is going to have a hard time overruling their own constituents come November. But that'll be their problem, and we'll see how it plays out.
Thank you to the senator for his time. We have more of our interview with Lindsey Graham later on in the show. But for now, let's go to our guest in studio for ProLife Analysis. Autumn Christensen is the policy director for the Susan B. Anthony list. Autumn, welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me.
First of all, you worked for over 10 years on Capitol Hill working on pro-life legislation. Can you speak to Senator Graham's leadership on the pro-life issue?
Sure, what a leader. Whether it's introducing the pain-capable bill, which is so important to protecting unborn children at halfway through pregnancy, or working on international policies as the chairman of the committee that funds international aid, or in his work on the Judiciary Committee, he's always ready to put that unborn child front and center in what he's working on.
Thanks for that perspective. I want to turn now to another story that we're going to have to break down for our viewers. We're following the pro-life pressure facing the Health and Human Services Department over an abortion surcharge. Can you break this down for us?
Sure. So as you may know and your viewers may know, when Obamacare was first enacted, it departed from the long-standing principle that we would not pay for abortion or abortion coverage. In an effort to get the votes necessary to pass Obamacare, Pelosi and Obama came up with sort of an arrangement where they said that there would be a separate abortion surcharge, that the abortions would be paid for with separate checks or separate debit card transactions. And that was sort of the message that certain Democrats that ended up voting for the bill believed was going to happen. Then, when the law was enacted and put into place, the Obama administration actually interpreted the term separate to mean together. So in the process of interpreting the law, they said instead of a separate payment, we'll allow one single payment together. And that then was very confusing to the average American who might be buying an Obamacare plan that includes an abortion surcharge. So we're calling on this administration to follow the law. Of course, we need a total repeal and replace of Obamacare to eliminate the abortion component. But in the interim, one thing that they can do is enforce the law that requires the abortion surcharge to be paid for separately.
Autumn, are you saying there are people paying for abortion without even realizing it?
Sure, there are hundreds of Obamacare plans that include an abortion surcharge that's hidden deep within their plan documents. They probably have no idea that they are paying an abortion surcharge. So we do have a place for individuals to go at obamacareabortion.com where they can look and see which plans in their state cover abortion and which ones don't.
That is obamacareabortion.com. We'll put that
right
on the screen for our viewers. But Autumn, back in 2009, then President Barack Obama told a joint session of Congress that under the Affordable Care Act, no federal dollars would go towards funding abortion. But isn't that what's happening right now?
Right, that is just not the case. The president said that there would be no funding for abortion, and here in the exact opposite of the Hyde Amendment. The Hyde Amendment always said no funding for abortion, no funding for plans that cover abortion. What we have instead is a federal health care system that has an explicit mechanism to cover abortion and make those abortions available and facilitate them.
This is shocking. I think a lot of our viewers will be surprised by this, and we are nearing that halfway point for the Trump administration's first term. How has this not been fixed already?
Well, you know, I think the first year of the Trump administration, there was a lot of interest in overturning and replacing Obamacare. But now we're going into the second open season for Obamacare, the second time period where individuals will be able to sign up for Obamacare plans. And it really is time for the Trump administration to, at a bare minimum, enforce the law as drafted and actually collect these payments separately as required by the law.
Absolutely. We'll keep on monitoring that situation. Autumn Christensen, the policy director for the Susan B. Anthony list. Thank you.
Thanks.
The Affordable Care Act, put into place by former President Barack Obama, allows funding for health plans that provide abortion coverage if there is a separate abortion surcharge. But the Obama-era enforcement rules are so permissive, they are rendered meaningless. Health insurers are currently allowed to bury the abortion surcharge in a single payment instead of collecting the abortion surcharge separately. It makes this abortion surcharge all but invisible, and that needs to end. Consumers should know if there's abortion coverage in their Obamacare plan. Here is this week's call to action. Go to ProLifeWeekly.com and tell the Health and Human Services Department to follow the law requiring separate collection of the abortion surcharge. Requiring an actual separate collection of the abortion surcharge will disincentivize abortion coverage in Obamacare and save lives. It will also ensure premium payers are aware of the abortion surcharge. Consumers have a right to know if they are funding abortion coverage, and by demanding the HHS Department separate the collection of the abortion surcharge, it will be more clear for consumers. Send your message right now to the HHS Department by going to ProLifeWeekly.com. Moving now to the culture front, the movie about abortionist Kermit Gosnell will be released in theaters next week, and we have an exclusive clip. Take a look.
With larger fetuses, they remain intact.
Of course, because the head's bigger. Makes it more difficult. What do you do then?
We use a machine to suction out the gray matter.
The gray matter, the brains. So you suction out the brains, and then what happens?
Then the skull collapses and the fetus can be removed.
Right.
That's an exclusive look into the movie Gosnell, the trial of America's biggest serial killer, to be released in select theaters next Friday, October 12th. It's based on the trial of notorious Philadelphia abortionist Kermit Gosnell, who is serving life in prison for killing babies born alive from botched abortions, among other charges. Ann McElhinney is the producer behind Gosnell, the trial of America's biggest serial killer. Ann, welcome to the show.
It's great to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
Congratulations on the release of the film. It's been in the works for such a long time. How does it feel?
Oh God, we're relieved, we're very relieved, and excited and scared, It's important that people come to theaters on October 12th. It's really, really important. The film will fall or rise on that weekend. If people don't turn out, it's a massive problem, so we need people to turn up.
And Ann, you shared with us an exclusive clip of the film. Let's go ahead and take a look at part of it.
What would you do if the baby was out and it was breathing?
We would issue comfort care.
Comfort care. Can you define that for us?
That's keeping the fetus warm and comfortable. Eventually it will pass.
Tell us about the clip we just saw. Give us some context.
So Janine Turner plays the role of the good abortionist. So, in this trial, it was very important that the jury got an education.
And by good abortionist, what do you mean by that?
Legal.
Okay.
So basically, it's legal, obviously, to do abortions in this country. So the jury needed to have murder distinguished from good abortions for them. And so they had two abortion doctors take the stand, and I think this testimony is incredibly significant. It's not a pro-life campaign. Mm-hmm. It's these legal abortionists telling you what an abortion looks like if it's done well. And I can tell you the jury were shocked profoundly by what was legal in this country, as will the audience be.
That was transcript from the courts, that scene we just saw.
Yeah.
It's a horrific story, what happened, a horrific trial. How was portraying that on film? Was that difficult?
This was a challenge for us, that people would, we could have made a horror film, and this is not a horror film. Okay. The aesthetic here is very much like a Law and Order episode. Okay. It's very much a trial and a drama, courtroom drama. We did not want, the book is different. The book, shows everything, if you like. Mm-hmm. The movie we were very, very careful not to show anything. Anyone can go and see this. We didn't, this is a PG-13, so anyone's, teenage children can come.
Teenagers in particular probably really should go and see this film.
Yes.
So while it's a gruesome case, it's not gruesome visually.
No, absolutely not.
And you've interviewed abortionist Kermit Gosnell. You've interviewed him in prison. Do you think he knows this movie is coming out?
I suspect that he does. I mean, he's been a little less communicative of late. He was writing me letters all the time. I'd be out having a walk in the park and he would constantly phone me. So that has tapered off quite a bit of late. So I would suspect that maybe he knows something's in the works.
And this case came onto your radar as a journalist. So speaking solely from a journalist perspective, how significant is the Gosnell trial?
It's incredibly significant. It's particularly significant in the dereliction of duty exhibited by journalists all over this country who did not cover this trial in the way that it should have been covered. Terry Moran of ABC described Kermit Gosnell as America's biggest serial killer, and yet almost nobody in this country knows about him. And the reason nobody knows about him in this country is that people like the New York Times, like CNN, decided not to cover this trial. They covered Jodi Arias's murder trial in forensic detail. We got it day by day. We got all this information about Jodi Arias, who killed one person, obviously extremely tragic. However, at the same time, Kermit Gosnell was on trial in Philadelphia and we heard nothing. Crickets.
And you mentioned it's important for people to come up and show up at theaters for this film. For viewers at home who do want to go see Gosnell, the trial of America's biggest serial killer, how do they find out which theaters are showing it?
So I'd like you to go to gosnellmovie.com, get in touch with us. We have someone who will help you also buy out theaters. This is incredibly important. I would appeal to people in churches, in prayer groups, in pro-life groups, in crisis pregnancy groups around the country. Buy out a theatre for the night, for the first night and for the second night that this film opens on the 12th of October, the 13th of October, the 14th of October. That first weekend is really, really significant. And we're appealing, the Catholic Church, could do with a good news story, and this is the kind of thing that they should be championing. We're hoping that Cardinal Dolan might do something. We're hoping that Archbishop Chaput will do something in Pennsylvania. This is something where the church should rally around and say to people need to see this. We're going to have a change at SCOTUS. There's going to be a massive change there. But hearts and minds need to be changed. And I can tell you the story of baby boy A's life and death, which is at the center of this movie, will change hearts and minds in a way that nothing else can. And this is why everyone should get behind filling those theaters.
Film is an incredibly powerful medium to reach people. Ann McElhinney, again, congratulations on the release of this film, producer behind Gosnell, the trial of America's biggest serial killer.
Thanks so much.
When we come back,
I represent South Carolina. People believe that life is sacred.
Senator Lindsey Graham tells us about his pro-life hopes and motivations. Stay tuned as EWTN Pro-Life Weekly continues after this break. October is Respect Life Month, and this Sunday marks Respect Life Sunday. May we all build up a culture of life and show that every human life is cherished and chosen. Welcome back to EWTN Pro-Life Weekly. I'm Catherine Hadro. A children's book came across our radar this week that portrays Cecile Richards as a saint. Here is this week's Speak Out segment. The Little Book of Feminist Saints was released earlier this year. In the introduction, the author admits the idea came from the Catholic Saint of the Day book, the kind one might read as a source of daily inspiration throughout the calendar year. But looking through the pages, you'll see notable abortion advocates like Gloria Steinem, Planned Parenthood founder Margaret Sanger, and the previous Planned Parenthood president, Cecile Richards. Take a look at this picture of the book captured on pro-life leader Abby Johnson's Facebook page. This book dubbed Cecile, along with her late mother, Texas Governor Ann Richards, as the matron saints of mothers and daughters. But Planned Parenthood, in truth, violently separates mothers and daughters by ending the lives of unborn children, male and female. This dramatically contrasts with whom the Catholic Church offers as the patron saint of mothers, St. Gianna Beretta Mala. The modern-day woman was a physician who sacrificed her own life to save that of her unborn child's. That is love, and that is what saints are made of. St. Gianna is just one of the many strong women the Catholic Church recognizes as a saint, women whom you won't find in this blasphemous book intended for children. The author calls this book a little secular book of feminist saints, and many of these women are seen as saints in the standards of this world, but we're called to the higher standards of heaven. St. Gianna, pray for us and this world. But remember, you can do something to counter today's culture of death in our world. Follow this week's call to action. Go to ProLifeWeekly.com and tell the Health and Human Services Department to follow the law requiring separate collection of the abortion surcharge. For this week's Pro-Life Focus, we go to part 2 of our sit-down interview with Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina about his leadership on pro-life legislation. Senator, I want to turn now to your personal pro-life views and your leadership on the pro-life issue. My next question is a direct one. Why are you pro-life?
Well, you know, I represent South Carolina. People believe that life is sacred. So the point that I'm trying to make here is this is an emotional issue. Abortion is a difficult thing in any society. We're one of 7 states that allow abortion on demand at the 20-week period. I'm the author of the bill that would say 20 weeks, the 5th month plus, you can't have abortion on demand.
The pain-capable unborn child protection act.
The pain-capable bill, because a child can feel excruciating pain at that point. Science tells us that if you operate on a baby at 20 weeks, you provide anesthesia because the baby can feel the pain. Should you do an abortion? And my answer is no. So we'll see where that bill goes. I think over time the public will be with us. The public is pretty much there already. We've got to get politicians. The partial birth abortion bill became law. My bill, the victims of unborn violence, the situation out in California where the lady was killed by her husband in the the last month of pregnancy. Under California law, he was prosecuted for 2 crimes, killing the Lacey Peterson case.
Right.
Well, that's now federal law, and so I feel good about where we're headed.
Speaking of the pain-capable bill, while running for the presidency, then candidate Donald Trump said he would sign the pain-capable bill into law. We're coming closer to the halfway point of his first term. What do you want to say to the president about making that legislation a priority? Number one, you've kept your word to the pro-life community. You've been a good pro-life president. Keep talking about it. Again, we're one of 7 nations in the entire planet that allow abortion on demand at 20 weeks. There have been people, this is not about viability of the unborn, which is the Roe standard. This is a concept that legislative bodies like Congress can protect a child from excruciating pain. That's a legitimate state interest. Just to have the president keep talking about it, we're over 50 votes. We need to get to 60, and people say, why don't you change the rules? I would tell my friends in the pro-life community, all the advancements we've made, if it were just a simple majority, they could be wiped out the next time the Democrats are in charge. So the 60-vote rule is frustrating at times, but it's also protected a lot of our gains. Finally, Senator, my last question is, it seems Congress is increasingly polarized, and one of the most divisive issues is abortion. Are you able to have productive dialogue on the issue of life with your colleagues?
Sure, absolutely. When I go to a town hall meeting, most of the people there want to hear about taxes, everything, pro-life, pro-choice, guns, terrorism. Very few people in the country pick a single issue.
I see.
And most people look at the whole of who you are as a politician. So we got to move forward. We can have our legitimate discussions and debates about when life begins and what protection it should have from the government. And just thank God you live in a society where you can have a say. What worries me is that the stakes are high in Kavanaugh's case because you don't want to legitimize the destruction of a person by innuendo and unfounded allegations just to get a Supreme Court seat. That will destroy the court over time. Who would want to follow Kavanaugh if they're successful in taking him down? So I think it's important that we get him on the court because he's qualified, he's capable. I recommended that President Trump pick him. I've known him for 20 years. He worked with President Bush. This is a time when sort of the establishment in the Trump world came together behind a very qualified person. And what they're doing to Judge Kavanaugh is about power. They want to keep this seat open. It's the swing seat on the court.
Right.
I voted for Sotomayor and Kagan because elections do have consequences. Obama won. I know people didn't like it on our side, but it used to not be this way. It used to be you respected elections. When it comes to Trump, our friends on the other side, there are no rules, there are no boundaries. Because it's a Trump nominee, you can do anything. That can't stand. Trump won. He beat me in the primary, trying to help him, and I appreciate what he's done for the pro-life movement.
And hopefully that dialogue that you mentioned can be productive with all
I hope
senators.
so. We're a great people, and this is not our finest moment. Hopefully it'll get behind us.
Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, thank you again for your time, Senator.
Thank you.
That'll do it for this edition of EWTN Pro-Life Weekly, but I'd love to hear from you before next week. Email me at prolifeweekly@ewtn.com or like my public page on Facebook so we can keep this pro-life conversation going. Remember, life is a gift. Your life is a gift. God bless.